The massive space station slowly spun against the backdrop of glittering stars, its silver hull reflecting the light of a distant sun. Inside, Alan Reed clutched his worn leather bag tighter as the elevator carried him toward the medical wing. It was his first day as the human representative in the Galactic Research Station's biology division, and his heart wouldn't stop racing. The elevator doors opened with a soft hiss, revealing a pristine white corridor. 2 aliens waited for him, one tall and thin with blue-tinted skin, the other short and stocky with scales that shifted color like oil on water. Alan had studied the common species in the galaxy, but seeing them in person still took his breath away. "Welcome, Human Reed," the taller one said, its translator converting the series of clicks into English. "I am Dr. Blue, Chief Medical Officer. This is my assistant, Pip." The shorter alien bobbed its head in greeting, scales flickering through shades of green. "Please call me Alan," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "It's an honor to be here." Yes, Dr. Blue waved a long-fingered hand. "We must complete your medical screening before you can begin your duties. Standard procedure for all new arrivals." The alien doctor gestured toward an examination room. Alan followed them inside, where strange machines lined the walls. He recognized some from his briefing materials: vital sign monitors adapted for different species, tissue scanners, and atmospheric adjusters. The room automatically changed its temperature and air composition to match Earth normal conditions. "Remove your outer garments and lie on the scanning bed," Pip instructed, scales now a professional shade of white. Alan did as asked, trying not to feel self-conscious about being the only human among thousands of alien researchers. The scan started, bathing him in soft blue light. Dr. Blue watched the readings with 4 eyes, all of them gradually widening. The alien's professional demeanor cracked as data streamed across the screens. "This can't be right," Dr. Blue muttered, tapping commands into the console. "Pip, recalibrate the scanners." Pip's scales flashed orange with concern. "Already done, Doctor." 3 times. "What's wrong?" Alan asked, propping himself up on his elbows. "According to these readings, your bones are riddled with cracks. Hundreds of them. Old breaks, healing breaks, microfractures." Dr. Blue's voice rose with each word. "Oh, those." Alan laughed. "That's normal. Human bones constantly break down and rebuild themselves. It's how they stay strong." The medical team stared at him in horror. Pip's scales turned a sickly gray. "Your bones deliberately break themselves." "Well, when you put it that way, it sounds weird," Alan admitted. "But it's just basic bone remodeling. All humans have it." Dr. Blue's fingers flew over the console, bringing up more scans. "Your skin is shedding and replacing itself. Your blood cells are dying and being rebuilt by the billions. Your stomach is dissolving itself and regenerating its lining. How are you still alive?" Alan sat up, suddenly realizing that what seemed normal to him was anything but normal to the galaxy at large. That's just how human bodies work. We're constantly breaking down and rebuilding ourselves. It's not dangerous. Not dangerous. Pip's scales cycled through colors so quickly they became a blur. "Your entire biology is based on controlled damage and repair. It's like you evolved on a death world," Dr. Blue finished, all 4 eyes fixed on Alan with new interest. "We new humans came from a high-gravity planet with extreme temperature variations, but this..." The alien doctor began making notes, muttering about damage resistance and repair mechanisms. "I thought this was just a routine medical screening," Alan said, watching as more alien medical staff began filtering into the room, drawn by the commotion. "There is nothing routine about your biology, human Alan," Dr. Blue replied. "Your medical scan just disproved 3 different theories about cellular stability. The galactic scientific community has apparently vastly underestimated your species." Alan put his clothes back on as the alien doctors huddled around his scan results, arguing in various languages while their translators struggled to keep up. He'd come to the station hoping to learn about alien biology, but it seemed like his own biology was going to be the center of attention for a while. As he watched Dr. Blue frantically recording notes about human healing factors and Pip explaining his scans to a growing crowd of fascinated alien scientists, Alan had a feeling his time on the station was going to be very interesting indeed. 3 weeks after his arrival, Alan woke to flashing red lights and a blaring alarm. The station's AI announced in multiple languages that the main cooling system had failed. Temperature levels were rising in all sectors. He rushed to the engineering bay, where aliens of various species crowded around status screens. The room felt like a sauna, and most of the aliens looked uncomfortable. Dr. Blue stood with the engineering team, all 4 eyes fixed on temperature readouts. The backup systems can't handle the load. The chief engineer, a tall insectoid named Twist, clicked through his translator. We need to manually repair the primary cooling units, but the maintenance tunnels are too hot now. We must wait for emergency crews from the nearest station. How hot are the tunnels? Alan asked, wiping sweat from his forehead. 42 degrees Celsius and rising, Twist replied. Fatal conditions for most species after 30 minutes of exposure. Alan did the math in his head. Around 107 Fahrenheit. Hot, but not impossibly so. I can do it. The room fell silent. Dr. Blue turned all 4 eyes toward him. Human Alan, you cannot. The heat will kill you. Actually, humans are really good at handling heat, Alan said, already taking off his outer shirt. We evolved as persistence hunters on a hot savanna. As long as I can sweat, I'll be fine. Sweat? Pip asked from nearby, scales shifting to a confused yellow. You mean the liquid cooling system we detected during your medical scan? You want to leak water to stay cool. That's one way to put it, Alan replied. Look, every minute we wait, more systems will fail. I can handle the heat long enough to fix this. Just tell me what needs to be done. Twist's antennae waved in agitation, but the engineer quickly explained the repairs needed and gave Alan the necessary tools. The maintenance tunnel entrance was nearby, and Alan could feel the wave of heat as it opened. This is madness, Dr. Blue muttered, recording everything with a medical scanner. Your internal temperature will rise to lethal levels. That's what the sweating is for, Alan said cheerfully, then entered the tunnel. The heat hit him like a wall. Within minutes, his shirt was soaked with sweat, but his body's cooling system worked exactly as evolution had designed it. He crawled through the narrow tunnels, following Twist's directions through his earpiece. Human Alan, your core temperature is elevating. Dr. Blue's worried voice came through. You must return. I'm fine, Alan grunted, reaching the first repair site. His hands were steady as he worked on the machinery. This is actually cooler than the summer I spent working construction in Texas. He continued working as the aliens monitored his vital signs with increasing alarm. After an hour, he had repaired 3 different cooling units. The station's temperature was finally starting to drop. Just one more, Alan said, his voice tired but determined. He was soaked in sweat, but his body temperature remained safely below dangerous levels. Impossible, he heard someone whisper over the comm. He's been in lethal conditions for over an hour. Alan finished the last repair and made his way back, emerging from the tunnel to find a crowd of astonished aliens waiting. Dr. Blue rushed forward with medical scanners while Pip offered him water. Your species, Dr. Blue said, checking his vital signs. You just survived conditions that would kill most sentient beings, and you're telling me humans regularly work in such heat. On Earth, some people run marathons and worse, Alan said, drinking the water gratefully. Humans are pretty good at not dying from heat. It's the freezing cold that bothers us more. Marathon. Twist's antennae twitched. Your species runs for sport in lethal temperatures. Running long distance is kind of our thing, Alan shrugged. The sweating helps. The station's temperature was returning to normal, but the aliens' view of human biology had been permanently altered. As Alan headed off to shower, he heard Dr. Blue frantically updating the medical databases section on human thermal regulation. A species that cools itself by deliberately losing water, Pip commented, scales showing patterns of blue amazement. And they do it well enough to work in killing heat. No wonder their bones are always breaking. Their whole planet must be trying to kill them. Alan smiled as he walked away. If they were this shocked by human sweating, he couldn't wait to see their reaction when they learned about human endurance running. The accident happened so fast that Alan barely had time to think. He and Root, one of the station's maintenance workers, were fixing a panel in the botany lab when the pressure seal failed. Sharp pieces of metal and glass flew everywhere as the air rushed out of the broken pipe. Alan's body moved before his mind could catch up. He pushed Root away from the worst of it, taking most of the blast himself. Something sharp cut deep into his arm, and he felt the warm rush of blood. Through the chaos, he heard Pip's scales turn emergency red as the alien hit the alarm. The medical team arrived quickly, led by Dr. Blue. The alien doctor's 4 eyes went wide at the sight of red human blood spreading across Alan's shirt. "You're leaking," Dr. Blue shouted, all professional calm forgotten. "Your internal fluid is escaping. It's just blood." Alan winced as he pressed his hand against the cut. "I'll be fine. How's Root?" Root lay nearby, their crystalline skin showing several cracks where debris had hit them. The alien worker looked more startled than hurt. "Human Alan protected me," they said, their translator making their musical language sound surprised. "But you're losing so much red liquid. Get them both to medical. Now," Dr. Blue ordered. In the medical bay, the staff seemed more panicked about Alan's bleeding than he was. They had never treated a human injury before, and the sight of blood made them extremely nervous. "Why won't it stop flowing?" Pip asked, scales shifting between worried purple and fascinated blue as they watched Alan's wound. "Just wait," Alan said calmly. "It's already slowing down. Human blood clots pretty quickly." The medical team watched in amazement as the bleeding gradually stopped. Dr. Blue scanned the wound continuously, recording everything. "Your blood, it's solidifying," the alien doctor asked. "It repairs itself." "That's what blood clots are for," Alan explained. "It's like emergency repairs. Stops the bleeding until the real healing can start." "Fascinating," Dr. Blue muttered. "And how long until the real healing, as you say, repairs the damage?" "A couple of weeks, maybe less," Alan shrugged with his good arm. "The cut's not too deep." In the next bed, Root was being treated for their cracked skin. The crystalline alien would need several months of careful mineral therapy to heal completely. They watched Alan with their faceted eyes. "You heal in weeks?" Root asked. "Not months or seasons. Human healing is pretty fast," Alan said. "We kind of have to be, given how often we get hurt." Over the next few days, the medical staff turned Alan's recovery into a research project. They documented everything as his wound began to heal, taking endless scans and readings. Dr. Blue was particularly fascinated by the scab formation. "Your body creates a temporary protective shell over injuries," the alien doctor said, examining Alan's arm. "And new tissue grows underneath, while you're still moving and working." "Well, yeah," Alan replied. "Hard to survive if you have to stop everything every time you get a cut." A week later, Alan was back to normal duty, though his arm still had a healing scab. Root was still in medical care, their crystal skin slowly reforming. The alien worker had become one of Alan's regular visitors. "I don't understand," Root said during one visit. "You lose vital fluids, but they clot themselves close. Your outer layer tears, but forms a protective crust. New flesh grows while you move, and you heal in days what takes us months. How are you not considered a medical miracle?" Alan thought about all the times he'd seen humans recover from injuries, broken bones, deep cuts, burns. Things that seemed so normal to him were apparently incredible to other species. I guess humans just got used to being hurt, he said. We had to heal quickly because our world never gave us time to heal slowly. Dr. Blue, who was updating Alan's medical file again, looked up at this. A species that evolved rapid healing because their world injured them so often. No wonder you leaked water to survive heat. Your whole biology is built around surviving things that should kill you. Ellen smiled. If they thought blood clotting was impressive, wait until they learned about how human bones could knit themselves back together even stronger than before. The lab was busier than usual when Alan arrived for his morning shift. A group of alien scientists huddled around a large containment chamber where a strange plant pulsed with soft blue light. Dr. Blue stood nearby, checking readings on a tablet. "Ah, human Alan," Dr. Blue called out. "We have a situation. The luminous plant we're studying only blooms once every 15 years. It started its cycle early, and we need constant monitoring for the next 72 hours. "Okay," Alan said, sipping his coffee. "What's the problem?" Pip's scales flickered anxiously. Most species need specific rest cycles. The myth need 4 hours of sleep every 6 hours. The crystalline, like root, must enter stasis every 8 hours. Even Dr. Blue's species requires 3 2-hour sleep periods per day. We've tried to create a monitoring schedule, Dr. Blue explained, but we're still short on coverage for several critical periods. We might miss important data about the blooming process. Alan looked at their complicated schedule displayed on the wall. "I can cover most of the night shifts. I'll just need coffee and some snacks." The room went quiet. Root, who had recently returned to light duty, turned their crystalline face toward him. "But when will you enter sleep stasis?" "I can stay awake for a few days if I need to." Alan shrugged. "Humans can push back sleep for a while, especially with caffeine." Caffeine. Dr. Blue's translator struggled with the word. "The nerve toxin you regularly consume. You use poison to avoid sleep." "It's not really a toxin to us," Alan explained. "Look, humans can handle irregular sleep patterns. We evolved to be flexible with our rest cycles. I can take the long shifts, and you can all maintain your normal sleep schedules." The alien scientists looked at him with a mixture of horror and fascination. Tip's scales had turned a confused shade of green. "You can choose when to sleep." "More or less," Alan said. "It's not comfortable, but it's possible. College students do it all the time during exam weeks." Despite their concerns, they adjusted the schedule. Alan took the longest monitoring shifts, especially during the station's night cycle. He set up his tablet, kept his coffee thermos full, and settled in to watch the strange plant's progress. The first day went smoothly. The aliens were amazed to see him still alert and working after 16 hours. By the second day, they started taking readings of his vital signs along with the plant data. "Your brain activity is changing," Dr. Blue noted during one checkup, "but you're still functioning. How are you fighting your body's need for sleep?" "Years of practice," Alan yawned. "Humans are pretty good at pushing our limits when we need to. Our ancestors had to stay awake to watch for predators, hunt, protect their families. We kept that ability." Root brought him more coffee during the third day. "Your species willingly developed this skill, to ignore your body's rest cycle." "Not ignore, just postpone," Alan corrected, his voice tired but his eyes still focused on the readings. "We pay for it later, but sometimes staying awake is more important than being comfortable." The luminous plant finally finished its blooming cycle after 70 hours. Alan had stayed awake for nearly 3 days, running on coffee and determination. The alien scientists had gathered more data than they'd thought possible, thanks to the continuous monitoring. "I still don't understand," Pip said as Alan prepared to finally get some sleep. Their scales showed patterns of deep blue wonder. "Your species can just decide not to sleep, even though your body needs it. Humans are stubborn." Alan mumbled, exhausted but proud. "If something needs to be done, we find a way to do it, even if that means skipping sleep for a while." Dr. Blue made more notes in the ever-growing file about human biology, a species that can override their own biological needs, consuming toxins to stay alert, all to complete a task. It's as if you evolved to ignore your own survival requirements when necessary. Alan was too tired to explain that this was just the tip of the iceberg when it came to human sleep habits. He'd save the explanation about power naps, microsleeps, and catching up on sleep debt for another day. Right now, his bed was calling, and after 3 days awake, he was finally ready to answer. The Galactic Ambassador's visit to the station was a big event. The dining hall had been decorated with shimmering lights, and the kitchen staff had prepared special dishes for every species present. Alan sat at his assigned table, looking at the carefully separated food sections marked for different biological groups. Remember, Dr. Blue warned him quietly, each dish has been specially prepared to avoid cross-contamination. One species' food could be another's poison. Alan nodded, reaching for his water glass. Next to him, Root was carefully absorbing mineral solutions through their crystalline surface. Pip sat across from them, their scales a formal shade of deep purple as they consumed something that looked like glowing moss. The ambassador, a tall being with flowing tentacles, made a speech about unity and scientific cooperation. Alan politely clapped along with everyone else, then reached for what he assumed was the human-safe section of appetizers. Human Alan. Dr. Blue's voice carried a note of alarm. That section is marked for carbon-silicon hybrid metabolisms. But Alan had already popped the small, spicy-looking cube into his mouth. The entire table froze. Pip's scales flashed emergency red. "Oh, sorry," Alan said, chewing thoughtfully. "It's actually pretty good. Tastes like really hot curry." "That contains enough capsaicin to paralyze most species," the server who rushed over informed him anxiously. "And the crystalline compounds." "Capsaicin? You mean like in chili peppers?" Alan grinned. "Humans eat this stuff all the time. Some of us even enjoy it." The server's appendages waved in distress. But it's a defense toxin. Plants evolved it to prevent being eaten." "It's just coffee," Alan said. "Extra strong, but still coffee. Humans drink this every morning." The dining hall had gone quiet as more aliens turned to watch. Alan could see Dr. Blue frantically documenting everything. Then he really caused an uproar by eating something from the desert tray. "That contains theobromine," someone shouted. "It's a deadly methylxanthine." "Oh, you mean chocolate?" Alan asked, enjoying the rich taste. "This is really good chocolate, actually." The ambassador had come over to their table, all 4 tentacles writhing with interest. "You can eat alkaloids, and defensive plant toxins, and concentrated methylxanthines, all at once. Human bodies are pretty good at handling different chemicals," Ellen explained. "We evolved as omnivores. We can eat almost anything. Our livers are really good at breaking down toxins. They deliberately seek out and consume things that should kill them," Root observed, their crystalline surface reflecting the hall's lights. "And their bodies just deal with it." "Not all toxins," Alan clarified quickly, seeing the worried looks. "Some things are still poisonous to us. We just developed resistance to a lot of plant toxins because we needed to be able to eat a wide variety of foods to survive." Dr. Blue was still scanning him. "Your body is actively processing multiple compounds that would be lethal to most species, and you're showing no signs of distress. Your species casually consumes deadly chemicals for pleasure. When you put it that way, it sounds much more dramatic than it is," Alan said, but he had to admit they had a point. Humans did routinely consume things that other species considered dangerous. Coffee, chocolate, spicy food, alcohol. The ambassador made an announcement that the human section of the dining hall would be roped off, just to prevent any other species from accidentally consuming human food. Alan spent the rest of the evening explaining human dietary habits to fascinated aliens, while Dr. Blue documented everything for their increasingly thick file on human biological capabilities. a species that eats poison for fun. Pip commented, their scales showing a mix of horror and admiration. No wonder they can stay awake for days and heal so quickly. They're essentially immune to death. The station's emergency sirens jolted Alan awake at 300 hours. Red warning lights flashed as the AI system reported multiple hull breaches in the lower sectors. A meteor shower had struck the station's least protected side. Alan rushed to the emergency gathering point, where he found chaos. Dr. Blue was trying to organize evacuation groups, while Pip coordinated with the rescue teams. The station's artificial gravity was fluctuating, making everyone stumble. The maintenance shaft to the escape pods is blocked. Twist reported, antennae twitching with stress. Temperature controls are failing. We have injured people in the lower labs who can't reach the evacuation points. How bad is it down there? Alan asked, already knowing he wouldn't like the answer. 45 degrees Celsius, rising, Twist clicked. Gravity unstable, low oxygen. The rescue teams can't reach them in time. Alan looked at the station schematic. The path to the trapped scientists would take him through hot, low-oxygen sections of the station. He'd have to carry injured aliens back through the same route. I can get them, he said, grabbing an emergency oxygen mask. Human Alan, no, Dr. Blue protested. You've only had 2 hours of sleep after your last shift. The heat, the oxygen levels, the physical strain. Those are all things humans are good at handling, Alan replied, checking the mask's seals. Remember, we're built for this kind of thing. Before anyone could stop him, he was moving. The station's corridors were getting hotter by the minute, but his body's cooling system kicked in automatically. Sweat soaked his clothes as he pushed through sections that would have killed most species. He found the first group of trapped scientists in the genetics lab. 3 aliens huddled in an emergency shelter, their environmental suits damaged. Among them was Root, their crystalline form showing stress fractures from the impacts. The human came for us. One of them whispered as Alan helped them up. Can you walk? Alan asked Root. When the crystalline alien shook their head, he simply lifted them up. Hold on tight. We're getting out of here. The journey back was worse. The temperature had risen further, and carrying Root while helping the others took every bit of strength he had. His muscles burned with effort, but he kept moving. Hours of evolution as persistence hunters had prepared humans for exactly this kind of endurance challenge. Halfway back, debris from another impact cut into his arm. He barely noticed, his body's emergency responses automatically dealing with the injury. The blood clotted quickly as he worked, his focus entirely on getting everyone to safety. They made 3 more trips into the damaged sections. Each time, the conditions were worse. Alan's body was running on emergency reserves, minimal sleep, extreme heat, physical exhaustion, and injuries that would have stopped most species. But he kept going, driven by the human ability to push past normal biological limits. Hours later, when the crisis was finally over and emergency repairs were underway, Alan sat in the medical bay letting Dr. Blue treat his injuries. The alien doctor kept looking between their scanner and Alan's vital signs in disbelief. You stayed awake and functional for hours after only 2 hours of sleep, Dr. Blue listed off. You worked in lethal temperatures while your body leaked water to stay cool. You carried loads that should have exhausted you. You ignored injuries that would incapacitate most species. And you did it all at once. Humans are good at emergencies, Alan said tiredly. When things go wrong, we can push ourselves pretty far. Pretty far. Pip's scales showed patterns of awe. You ignored nearly every biological limit we know of. Your body should have shut down from any one of those stresses. Root, being treated nearby, spoke up. He came back for us. Multiple times. Even after being injured. That's what humans do, Alan shrugged, wincing as Dr. Blue cleaned a cut. We evolved to handle extreme situations, running long distances in hot weather while injured and sleep-deprived to help our tribe survive. That's basically what we're built for. Dr. Blue made more notes in their file, which had grown enormous. A species that can simultaneously overcome heat death, sleep deprivation, physical exhaustion, and trauma. The Galactic Biology Council needs to completely reconsider how they classify human capabilities. Alan was too tired to tell them that what he'd done wasn't even close to the limits of human endurance. He'd save the stories about ultramarathons and Arctic expeditions for another day. The Galactic Science Council chamber was larger than any room Alan had ever seen. Thousands of alien scientists from across the galaxy had gathered for this special session. He sat between Dr. Blue and Pip, trying not to fidget as the council members reviewed the evidence from the space station. "We have gathered today," the council leader announced, their bioluminescent form glowing with formal patterns, "to discuss the reclassification of human biology based on new evidence." The massive screens around the chamber began displaying data from the past few months. Alan watched as videos played of him working in the hot maintenance tunnels, staying awake for days during the plant observation, healing from injuries, and carrying injured aliens to safety during the crisis. The human species, Dr. Blue addressed the council, standing at the speaker's platform, has demonstrated biological capabilities that defy our current classification system. They can regulate their temperature through controlled water loss, remain conscious, and functional for extended periods without rest, rapidly heal from injuries while maintaining normal activity, and safely consume substances that are lethal to most species. The council chamber filled with murmurs as more data appeared on the screens. Alan's medical scans, tissue samples, and vital signs during various incidents were displayed for all to see. Root stepped forward next, their crystalline form catching the light. During the station crisis, human Alan demonstrated all these abilities simultaneously. He functioned in temperatures that should have killed him, worked without sleep, ignored injuries, and maintained physical exertion that would exhaust most species. And he did this not just to survive, but to help others. The council leader's glow patterns shifted to show interest. "And you believe our current biological classification system cannot account for these capabilities?" "Correct," Dr. Blue said. "Humans possess combinations of traits that we previously thought were impossible to evolve together. They have the endurance of persistence predators, the healing rate of small prey species, the poison resistance of scavengers, and the sleep flexibility of apex predators. Yet they developed intelligence equal to any spacefaring species." Pip moved to the platform, their scales shifting through academic colors. "Most importantly, they can activate all these abilities at once without suffering immediate biological failure. It's as if their entire species evolved to simply ignore what we thought were universal biological limits." The council chambers erupted in scientific debate. Ellen watched as various alien scientists argued about human capabilities. Some insisted it was impossible for a species to evolve such traits together. Others wanted to classify humans as an entirely new form of life. Finally, the council leader raised their appendages for silence. "Human Alan, would you address the council?" Alan stood, suddenly nervous. On Earth, humans live in every environment, from frozen poles to burning deserts. We eat almost anything, adapt to any schedule, and keep going when we should probably stop. We didn't know any of this was special. It's just how we survived. But maybe that's the point. Humans evolved to survive anything our world threw at us, and our world threw everything it had. The council leader's glow patterns showed deep thought. "You suggest these abilities evolved not as separate traits, but as a unified survival strategy?" "Yes," Alan nodded. "Humans aren't specialized to be good at one thing. We're specialized to be okay at everything, and to keep going no matter what happens. It's not always pretty, but it works." The council chamber was quiet for a moment. Then the council leader spoke again, their patterns showing decision. "Based on the evidence presented, this council hereby creates a new biological classification, persistent adaptive paradox species. Humans will be the first species so classified, representing life forms that evolve seemingly contradictory traits into unified survival strategies." After the ceremony, Alan stood with his friends from the station. Dr. Blue was already planning new research projects. Pip's scales showed excited patterns about future human studies. Root simply glowed with pride for their friend. "You know," Alan said, "back on Earth, we have a saying. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." I guess humans just took that idea really, really seriously. A species that treats near-death experiences as self-improvement, Dr. Blue muttered, adding one final note to their file. Perhaps that's the most human thing of all.